Safety. We all perform rituals every day that have to do with safety. We buckle our seatbelts. We check our smoke alarms. We wear bicycle helmets. We bundle up in cold weather. Fortunately, most of us feel warm and safe in the homes we have created and take comfort in our human circle of family members, friends, and peers. But for some, safety means something else. It is upsetting to realize that safety, to some people, is not about bike helmets, but about surviving one day at a time. Safety, to some, is about being able to live life free of fear and trauma. Safety is about being able to heal from the damage of domestic and sexual violence. This community has relied on the Women's Resource Center of the New River Valley for over 35 years to be the source of safety and healing for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault.
So 35 years ago, there was so much going on in this country, and it set the stage for so much change in the way we think about things and the way we do things and the way we protect people. There was the anti-war movement, there was the civil rights movement, there was the women's movement, the movement that was all about equality for women, and out of that came the battered women's movement. Women were talking out loud for the first time. 35 years ago, it had to be the woman's fault that she got beat up. It had to be the woman's fault or the co-ed's fault that she got raped because she was somewhere she shouldn't have been, looking some way she shouldn't have looked. And so that was the landscape from which the Women's Resource Center was born. At first, it was just an emergency shelter and a 24/7 hotline. Those are the basics, really. But it became so much bigger as we on staff and on the board listened to what victims had to say to us, as we felt the horror that was going on in their homes and the things that were happening to them. It became clearer and clearer to us the additional services that we needed in order to fill their needs.
Today, the Women's Resource Center provides state-of-the-art programs and services to victims of domestic and sexual violence, women, children of all ages, seniors, and yes, even to male victims. With a staff of 25 and a volunteer force in the hundreds, the organization serves over 5,000 people each year. Staff and volunteers have extensive training in working with traumatized individuals. But it is the victims themselves who lead the way, taking charge of their pathway to healing and choosing what services and supports they desire on their own timeline. Many victims are entangled in the legal system. The organization has court advocates on staff who support victims through the maze of legal options and stressful court appearances. And there are emergency advocates on staff who aid victims immediately following a domestic or sexual assault, usually at one of the local hospital emergency departments. They're on duty 24 hours a day, ready to go where they're needed, to inform and support victims in the critical first hours.
My husband first became abusive actually prior to us even being married. I was pregnant with our oldest son, and we had gotten into an altercation, and he just hit me and threw me to the ground. And when the kids and I first entered the shelter, I was scared, but in all of that, it was very peaceful. Some of the services that we received here was, ultimately counseling. We had the children's counselor and the counselor for myself. I think ultimately that was the most important for us at that time. Then having the court advocate was a blessing. I didn't know what we would have to be doing in order to get us the legal aspect of getting custody of the kids and getting my protective order and getting all that in line. And when Cornerstone was completed, we were the second family to be able to move in there. So I just remember walking in there and just having so much joy. I would have a place of my own. All right, I don't want to cry. I'm most grateful for them to be here. I think I honestly don't know if I'd be where I am today if I didn't have the Women's Resource Center in my life. You know, you go through life and you go through the abuse and you don't have any resources. You know, you don't have money, you don't have a vehicle, and everything's kept from you, so you're very limited in what you're able to do. A lot of times you just don't have the strength to keep going. They are their rock for many of us. And I hope they know, I hope they understand how important they are to so many women's lives.
The stories don't all have happy endings. In this field, patience is critical. Victims have a lot of work to do, some starting over with little more than the pajamas they and their kids are wearing when they arrive at the shelter. This may mean finding employment, saving for a rental deposit, going back to school, figuring out childcare, healthcare, and transportation. But being safe is the first priority. No one can make progress in healing until they know they and their children are safe.
So it's really important that we help break the generational cycle of sexual assault and domestic violence. If someone has grown up with violence around them, we want to help them understand that that's not how their normal has to be. You know, in the 60s and 70s, drunk driving was acceptable. Nobody batted an eye. And now it's just not tolerated. We want to get to that place with interpersonal violence. We want to get to the place where we don't tolerate sexual assault and domestic violence happening in our relationships or in our families or in our communities.
The Women's Resource Center presents its original program, Peace Line, in almost every school in the New River Valley. To students in the 6th through 10th grades, the Peace Line curriculum is highly acclaimed by the Virginia Department of Health and by local teachers, and is a highlight of the year for the students. Peace Line is designed specifically for teens and teaches about healthy relationships, risk factors and consequences of sexual assault and rape, indicators that something might not be right in a relationship or situation, and where to seek help. Through Peace Line and hundreds of other community presentations and trainings each year, the Women's Resource Center is trying to put itself out of business. Their vision is that of a New River Valley free of domestic violence and sexual assault.
We are just getting ready for the next 35 years because there are things to be done. There are even better ways to do this, and we might not know them yet, but they're going to come to us because victims will always be our guides in this work, and we'll be able to change even more in the next 35 years.
My life now is, it's awesome. Right now, I work for the city of Radford. I have a fantastic job. I've got two young men who are just a blessing to our lives, and they're proud now. Back in the day, I think they were a little embarrassed, but now they're proud. They understand what it takes to fight for something that you really want in life, and sometimes you do have to fight, but it's worth it.
The Women's Resource Center is a treasure in the New River Valley, working for over 35 years to provide shelter and healing, to achieve justice for victims, to prevent future interpersonal violence, to make our community a place of peace. Working to incite safety for you and the people you know and love.